My boyfriend locked me in the car during his sister's entire wedding ceremony. Weeks later, he had already left 41 desperate voice messages. I had been dating Raul for 8 months and thought things were going well. It wasn't a perfect fairy tale, but it definitely felt real. But yesterday, at his sister's wedding, the disaster that had apparently been lurking in our relationship just exploded. Let me go back a little to explain how we met, because that makes this betrayal even more painful. Our meeting was so random that it felt like fate or something. I was at an art exhibition during a special showcase night. The event was packed because the company Raul worked for was sponsoring it and debuting new projection technology in the middle of the presentation. Suddenly, there was a power outage due to a storm. Everything went completely dark, except for the glow of phone flashlights. I was trying to find the exit when someone bumped into me. That someone was Raul. He apologized and helped me find the restroom, where I needed to fix my contact lenses, which had shifted from the impact. We ended up talking for hours at the exhibition's cafe after the power came back on. He told me that seeing my face illuminated by the emergency lights was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Who says something like that? My silly heart melted on the spot. Fast forward to yesterday, his sister Monica's wedding. I had never met Raul's family before, which, in hindsight, was already a major red flag in our relationship. He always made excuses. They were busy, they lived far away, his sister was planning the wedding, blah blah blah. But finally, I would get the chance to meet them. I spent weeks choosing the perfect dress, nothing too flashy that could outshine the bride, but still beautiful enough to make a good impression. I chose a tea-length blush pink dress with small embroidered silver flowers. It felt appropriate, considering how we met. I did my makeup, put on the silver necklace Raul had given me for our 6-month anniversary, and prepared the wedding gift. Monica and her fiancé, Stanley, were anime fans and had mentioned wanting to honeymoon in Japan. I saved for 2 months to contribute to their trip. I gathered $1,500 in Japanese yen and a certificate for a traditional tea ceremony experience in Kyoto. Everything was placed in a beautifully hand-painted wooden box with cherry blossoms. Raul said it was too much, but I wanted his family to like me. On the day of the wedding, Raul picked me up in his car. He seemed tense, but I thought it was just wedding stress. On the way to the venue, a beautiful garden about an hour outside the city, he started making odd comments about my dress. "That's what you're wearing? Don't you think it's a bit much? My family is kind of traditional." I started getting nervous, but I had spent weeks planning my look, and honestly, I looked gorgeous. The wedding was scheduled to start at 3 p.m., and we arrived around 2:30 p.m. Raul parked in a lot at the back, behind some trees. Then he dropped the bombshell. "I need you to wait in the car." I laughed, thinking it was a joke, but he wasn't joking. His face turned serious, tense, and he said his family was very demanding, and that he needed to prepare them before introducing me. I was confused. They knew I existed, right? We had been dating for 8 months. I started asking questions, and suddenly, he snapped, "My family doesn't need to see your pathetic face and your disgusting dress. Stay here and wait." I was in shock. Before I could even process what was happening, he grabbed my purse, took my phone, and got out of the car. When I tried to open the door, I realized he had locked it from the outside with the electronic key. I was literally trapped. Through the windshield, I saw Raul walking away with my phone and the gift I had spent months preparing. I sat there, completely stunned. Had my boyfriend really locked me in the car and taken my phone? Was this actually happening? The car started getting hot. It was June. I tried opening the doors again. Nothing. I honked the horn, but we were so far from the venue that no one heard, or if they did, no one came to help. 2 hours. I sat in that car for 2 hours while the ceremony happened and ended. I cried until all my makeup was ruined. I thought about breaking a window, but the car was literally the only valuable thing Raul owned. And my mind kept telling me, "Don't overreact. There must be an explanation." Looking back, I should have smashed that glass without a second thought. Finally, he came back, acting like nothing had happened. He just unlocked the car, opened the door, and said, "They're ready to meet you." I was speechless. My makeup was a mess. I was sweaty, my hair a disaster, and my disgusting dress was probably so wrinkled it was beyond saving. But I was still in shock, so I just got out of the car and asked for my phone back. "I'll give it back to you later," he said. At this point, my brain was trying to justify everything. There must have been some huge misunderstanding. Maybe his family really was super traditional, and he panicked. Maybe he was embarrassed for some reason I didn't know. My mind was coming up with 1,000 excuses for him as I followed him into the reception. We walked into a beautiful tent, glowing with twinkling lights. Monica looked stunning in her wedding dress. Raul led me to her and Stanley, and I put on my best smile, even though I felt like absolute trash. Then came the ultimate betrayal. "Hey sis, this is Nadia. She's, just a friend from work." Just a friend. 8 months. That romantic museum date. The silver necklace I was wearing. The 31 nights he slept at my apartment. Christmas with my parents. all reduced to just a friend. And then he winked. He winked at one of Monica's bridesmaids, who laughed and winked back. I stood there, frozen, like I had stepped into some alternate reality where nothing made sense. Monica looked confused, but since it was her wedding day, she just smiled and said, "Nice to meet you," then turned to talk to other guests. The phrase, "just a friend from work," echoed throughout the night. Raul introduced me that way to uncles, cousins, grandparents, always with that cold, indifferent tone, always looking around, as if searching for someone more interesting. I smiled. I was polite. I said the right things, because what else could I do? 'Cause a scene at someone else's wedding? Scream. He locked me in a car for 2 hours? In front of the cake table? Now. I'm writing this the next morning. I finally got my phone back, and Raul dropped me off at my apartment last night, acting like the event had been wonderful. He actually tried to kiss me goodnight. I turned my face away, and he didn't even seem to notice that anything was wrong. And the wedding gift? The gift I saved for 2 months to buy? It's sitting at Monica and Stanley's house, mixed in with the other presents. Raul didn't even tell them it was from me. I didn't sleep. My mind keeps replaying everything, searching for signs I missed. Was our whole relationship a lie? Was I just an option until something better came along? I don't know what to do now. I want to confront him, but I also want to be smart about it. Part of me wants to tell Monica everything directly. Another part just wants to disappear from his life. Any advice? Because my head is spinning, and I'm pretty sure my relationship just ended in the worst way possible. First update. First of all, thank you to everyone who commented on my last post. I cried reading some of the messages. They helped me realize that I wasn't overreacting or going crazy. The internet sent support, and you guys delivered it like express shipping. It's been 4 days since the wedding disaster, and things have escalated. After posting, I spent the entire day ignoring Raul's messages. He sent me the usual, "Good morning, beautiful," as if he hadn't locked me in a car and pretended I was just some random coworker at the wedding reception. The audacity of this man is unreal. It's like he lives in a universe where logic and decency don't exist. I needed to process everything before facing him. So, I called in sick to work. One of the perks of working from home. No one can tell if your swollen eyes are from a cold or the apocalypse of your relationship. I couldn't stop thinking about the wedding gift, forgotten at Monica and Stanley's house. They don't even know it was from me. $1,500 that I saved by eating instant noodles for lunch, taking extra freelance gigs, and cutting down on my visits to the cafe where I like to write. Not to mention the special tea ceremony experience, which I spent weeks researching to find the most authentic one. Oh, a detail I forgot to mention earlier. I'm not rich. I'm a freelance writer who barely manages to pay rent some months. That gift was a sacrifice because I wanted his family to like me. Great decision on my part, right? So I spent the day planning what to do. But before I could act, Raul showed up at my apartment unannounced, with food from my favorite restaurant, as if nothing had happened. When I opened the door, he had the nerve to look confused at my obviously tear-swollen face. "What's wrong with you?" he asked, pushing his way into my apartment without being invited. I got straight to the point. I asked why he locked me in the car and introduced me as just a friend to everyone. And guys, his explanation? I don't even know where to begin. He said his ex was at the wedding. Yeah, that bridesmaid, the one who winked at him. What a surprise. Apparently they dated for 2 years before breaking up about a year ago. According to him, she dumped him, and he didn't want to look like a loser who moved on with someone. Less impressive. Less impressive. When I asked what that meant, he responded, word for word, "You know what I mean. Gina comes from a wealthy family. Her dad plays golf with my dad. Well, you're cute, but you're not exactly country club material." I'm shaking as I type this again. And as if that wasn't enough, he had the audacity to say this was actually a compliment, because he was with me despite my social status, that I should be grateful he saw something beyond my basic job and my simple apartment. As he said all this, he was casually unpacking the food onto my coffee table, like we were about to have a normal dinner. I was so shocked I couldn't even scream. It was like watching a nature documentary where the narrator calmly explains how a snake unhinges its jaw to swallow prey, twice its size. So, I asked about the wedding gift. And do you know what he said? Oh yeah, I told them it was from me. Monica was super impressed. Honestly, it was kind of over the top coming from you. They might think you were trying too hard. That was when something inside me shifted. Suddenly, everything was crystal clear. Calmly, I asked him to leave. He looked genuinely confused. Why are you being so sensitive? I'm just being honest. Most guys wouldn't even bother with someone like you. I opened the door and pointed outside. When he realized I was serious, he grabbed the food back. Yes, he took the damn food with him. The parasite, grumbling about how I was being dramatic, and that I'd call him once I'd calmed down. The second he left, a strange calm washed over me, like the peace after a storm, and I knew exactly what I needed to do. The next day, I spent hours researching, I found Monica on social media and saw that she and Stanley would still be in town for another week before going on a small weekend honeymoon. The big trip would come later. I also figured out where Raul's parents lived. He'd mentioned the neighborhood before. Most importantly, I saw Monica had posted about a family dinner happening the next night to thank everyone who attended the wedding. Perfect timing for my revenge plan. The next 3 days were a true test of self-control. Raul kept texting, gradually increasing the intensity. First, confused. Are you still mad? Then annoyed. This silent treatment is childish. Then angry. Fine, be a bitch about it. And finally, apologetic. Babe, please talk to me. I miss you. I responded as little as possible, just enough to keep him from showing up at my door again. I need space, still processing. We'll talk later. Meanwhile, I went to the bank and withdrew another $1,500 in cash. I could barely afford it, but at this point, it was about principle. I exchanged the money for yen at a specialty currency exchange downtown. I bought another beautiful gift box, not as fancy as the original, but still elegant. And I managed to book the same tea ceremony experience again. Basically, I recreated the entire wedding gift. It wiped out my savings, but some things are worth more than money. Yesterday was the family dinner at Raul's parents' house. I knew I wouldn't be invited, obviously, but I had other plans. I texted Raul, asking if we could meet up to talk. He agreed immediately, relieved that I was finally being reasonable. I suggested a cafe 15 minutes from his parents' house, at exactly 5 p.m., knowing the dinner started at 7. He arrived looking smug. I was already there, sitting at a table with 2 coffees and the new gift box beside me. The conversation was brief. I asked if he understood why his actions at the wedding had hurt me. He gave me a half-assed apology, saying he had a lot on his mind because his ex was there, but insisting I was overreacting. That's when he saw the box. What's this? A wedding gift for your sister. Since you took credit for my original one, I made another. He laughed. You're not serious. This is ridiculous. What are you going to do? Mail it? I smiled. Number. I'm going to deliver it. Right now. Guys. His face. OMG. The color just drained from it. What are you talking about? I know about the family dinner tonight. I'll be stopping by to properly introduce myself this time. He panicked. Said I couldn't do that, that his family wouldn't understand, that I'd embarrass him. That's when I finally got to say the line I'd been rehearsing for days. I'm not going to embarrass you, Raul. You already did that yourself. I'm just going to tell the truth. I stood up, grabbed my gift, and walked out. He followed me, alternating between threats and begging, but I got into my Uber before he could stop me. As the car pulled away, I saw him frantically calling someone in the rearview mirror, probably trying to warn his family, but it was too late. My Uber dropped me off at Raul's parents' house at 5:45 p.m., early enough that not everyone had arrived yet, but late enough to ensure Monica and Stanley were already there. With the gift in hand and my heart pounding, I knocked on the door. A woman who could only be Raul's mother answered. She looked confused but remained polite. Can I help you? I'm here to see Monica. If she's available, I have something for her. From inside the house, I heard Monica's voice. Who is it? Then, she appeared at the door. When she saw me, a flicker of recognition crossed her face. You're Raul's friend from the wedding. I smiled. Actually, that's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. Mrs. Alvarez invited me in, even though she clearly didn't understand the situation. The house was beautiful. There were family photos everywhere, and the delicious smell of food filled the air. In the kitchen, preparations for dinner were in full swing. Stanley was helping set the table. An older man, who had to be Mr. Alvarez, was watching TV in the living room. Monica led me to a quieter corner of the room. I handed her the gift box. This is for you and Stanley. Congratulations on your wedding. She looked surprised, but accepted it. Thank you. But, I'm sorry. What's your name again? Nadia. And I'm not just a friend of Raul. The update came later. Sorry guys, Raul just showed up banging on my door. I need to deal with this, but I promise I'll be back to tell you everything. Update. He's gone now, but he left a text the size of a novel. The drama has officially begun. Okay. Wow. I'm still processing everything that happened last night, but you guys have been so amazing and supportive that I wanted to update you as soon as possible. Where was I? Oh, right. I was sitting in Raul's parents' living room with Monica, about to tell her the truth. I took a deep breath and laid it all out. Raul and I have been dating for 8 months. He locked me in the car during your wedding, took my phone, and then spent the entire night introducing me as just a friend while flirting with the maid of honor, his ex, Gina. Monica's face went through a fascinating sequence of expressions. First confusion, then disbelief, and finally, growing horror. She kept repeating, "No, that can't be. Raul would never do that." But I could tell the exact moment she started to believe me. It was when I mentioned the original wedding gift. Her eyes widened. The trip to Japan, with the tea ceremony. That was from you. I nodded and explained that I had saved up for 2 months to put it together. I showed her photos on my phone, me at the currency exchange trading the money, the original box I found at a little artisan shop, everything. She shook her head, stunned. I don't understand. Raul made such a big deal about how much thought he put into that gift. He even told this whole story about researching traditional Japanese customs because he knew how much we love anime. I whispered. I was the one who researched it. I was the one who found the tea ceremony. I even hired a calligrapher to write your names in Japanese on the certificate. Monica looked down at the new gift box in her hands. And this is the same gift, recreated. I couldn't stand the thought of you not knowing it came from me. I wanted to meet you properly. At that moment, Stanley, who had been nearby, noticed that something serious was going on and stepped closer. Monica, growing more agitated, told him everything. Stanley's face turned red with anger. I knew something was off about that gift. Raul never showed the slightest interest in our Japan trip before. In fact, he always mocked us for watching anime, and that's exactly when the front door burst open. Raul stormed in, panting, as if he had run all the way there. He froze when he saw me sitting with Monica and Stanley, the opened gift box between us. What the hell are you doing here? He spoke as if I were the one in the wrong. Before I could respond, Monica stood up. Is it true? You locked your girlfriend in a car during my wedding? Silence fell over the house. Mrs. Alvarez stepped out of the kitchen, drying her hands on her apron. Mr. Alvarez muted the TV. Raul let out a nervous laugh. She's not my girlfriend, just a girl I was seeing. She got too attached and now she's making up stories. That's when I pulled out my phone. I knew he would say that. I was prepared. I opened our text history from the past 8 months, showed pictures of us together, showed the reservation for our weekend beach trip 3 months ago, showed the birthday card he gave me with the handwritten message, "To my beautiful girlfriend, with love," but the cherry on top? Remember that silver necklace he gave me for our 6-month anniversary? I was wearing it in almost every photo, including at the wedding. Monica grabbed my phone and started scrolling through the messages, her outrage growing with each one. She passed it to her mother, who looked increasingly horrified. Explain this, Raul. Monica's voice was shaking with anger, and that's when the lies started. Those messages could be with anyone, she just changed the contact name. These pictures don't prove anything. We were just hanging out. Okay, fine. We hooked up a few times, but she's crazy and clingy. With every new lie, his family's faces twisted further in disgust. Mrs. Alvarez covered her mouth with her hands when he called me crazy. Monica cut him off mid-excuse. And the gift? The money for the Japan trip and the tea ceremony? Raul hesitated. What about it? Did you give it to us? Or did she? He looked at the opened box, then at me, then back at his sister. You could see the calculations running in his head. We picked it out together. It was my idea, but she helped. Stanley let out a sarcastic laugh. Dude, just stop lying. That's when Mr. Alvarez finally spoke. Raul, did you lock this young woman inside your car during your sister's wedding? The way he asked, so direct, so simple, seemed to cut right through all of Raul's defenses. His shoulders slumped. It wasn't like that. Gina was there, and I didn't want... He stopped mid-sentence, realizing that any explanation would sound terrible. Silence filled the room. Mrs. Alvarez was the one to break it. She stepped toward me, took my hands, and apologized. Apologized for her own son's behavior. I started crying, which made her cry, which made Monica tear up too. Mr. Alvarez said something to Raul in Spanish. I didn't understand the words, but the tone was unmistakable. Deep disappointment and disgust. Raul tried to defend himself, pointing at me as if I were the villain in this story. Mr. Alvarez simply stood up and firmly but without yelling, told Raul he needed to leave. Not tonight. Not in this house. Raul looked genuinely shocked. You're kicking me out because of her? Monica stepped between them and clarified. Not because of her, because of what you did. The tension between them was so thick I felt like I should leave. But as I started gathering my things, Mrs. Alvarez gently touched my arm. Please, stay for dinner, she said. We'd love to get to know the real you. And that's how I ended up having dinner with Raul's family, without Raul. At first, it was a little awkward, but then it was amazing. Monica and Stanley were genuinely great people. They were beyond excited about the tea ceremony experience and asked me tons of questions about how I found it. Mr. and Mrs. Alvarez were warm and welcoming. Once the initial shock wore off, the conversation flowed naturally. Meanwhile, Raul was texting me nonstop. I hung up the phone. After dinner, when I left, Monica hugged me. Thank you for having the courage to tell everything. She said she had been noticing changes in Raul over the past year. More arrogant, more secretive. But she didn't want to believe her brother could be so cruel. I got home around 10 p.m. and found 27 missed calls and 41 messages from Raul. The messages started with anger. How dare you go to my family? Then they became desperate. What did you tell them? Then came the requests. Please call me. This is a misunderstanding. And finally, the defeat. They won't let me come back home. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from an unknown number. It was Gina. Apparently, Raul tried to spend the night at her place. She didn't let him. In the message, Gina apologized for getting involved in the wedding drama. She had no idea he had a girlfriend, and felt awful for flirting and winking at him. According to her, Raul went to the train station after being rejected and spent the night sending dramatic selfies of himself on the bench at the station. I'm not responding to anyone right now. I need to process all of this. Monica invited me to have coffee next week. She really wants to thank me for the gift and exchange notes about her brother. I think I'll go. And Raul? Well, karma arrived at the station. Literally. Last update. It's been 2 weeks since my last post, and the dust from the relationship explosion has finally begun to settle. Remember those 41 audio messages he sent me? I listened to all of them, and wow, they could be a complete course in emotional manipulation. Audios 1 to 5, pure anger, calling me all sorts of names, saying I ruined his life, and threatening to make me pay. Audios 6 to 12, the victim phase, crying, really sobbing, saying his family abandoned him, that he had to sleep at the train station, that it was cold and uncomfortable. Audios 13 to 20, rewriting history. Suddenly, our relationship was the best thing that ever happened to him. He never wanted to hurt me. The car incident was just a misunderstanding. Audios 21 to 30, trying to bargain, promising he'll make up for everything, that he'll introduce me properly to the family, that he'll pay me for the wedding gift. Audios 31 to 41, total desperation, more crying, more requests. Please call me. I have nowhere to go. I'll do anything. The last audio sent at 4:37 a.m. 2 whole minutes of heavy breathing and occasional sniffles. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I went to meet Monica for coffee, as planned. And without all that tension, she was even more amazing. It turns out Monica and I have a lot in common beyond her awful brother. We talked for 3 hours. She told me everything about the family fallout. Raul was practically disinherited, not just financially, although that too. Apparently, his parents were still helping him pay the rent, even though he had a good job in tech. But now, in addition to cutting off the money, they've also cut off emotional contact. His father made it clear. Until Raul shows genuine remorse and changes his behavior, he's not welcome at family events. Last week, Raul tried to show up at Sunday dinner. His mother literally blocked him at the door, and even mentioned something about reaping what you sow. Monica said he's been desperately trying to convince everyone that I'm unstable and manipulative, but no one believes him. The story about the wedding gift has even turned into family legend. Monica made sure to tell everyone what he did. According to her, Raul was always the golden child who never made mistakes. My visit was the first time his parents saw irrefutable proof of their son's true character. The truth hit them hard, and it was devastating. About Gina, the ex, the maid of honor, and I started exchanging some messages. It turns out Raul had told her a completely different story. At the wedding, he said I was a needy coworker with no sense of boundaries, and that I invited myself to the ceremony. She felt awful when she found out the truth. And me? I'm fine. More than fine. Of course, there were moments of doubt and sadness. 8 months is still 8 months, even if it was with someone who turned out to be a wolf in sheep's clothing. But overall, I feel free. Like I narrowly escaped a relationship that would have destroyed me little by little. Yesterday, I received a package in the mail. It was from Monica and Stanley. Inside was a beautiful handmade journal and a note for our new friend, who helped us see everything clearly. Look forward, not backward. I cried for an hour. And Raul? He finally stopped calling 3 days ago. Monica told me he's living with a gamer friend now. Now, he's spreading rumors that he broke up with me because I was too needy. One last pathetic attempt to save face before disappearing. Practical updates, since people asked. The wedding gift. Monica and Stanley insisted on reimbursing me for both gifts. At first, I refused, but they were persistent. We reached a compromise. They'll pay half, and I'll go with them to the tea ceremony in Kyoto as a guest. They postponed the trip until next spring and invited me to join them for part of it. My finances. The double cost of the gifts wiped out my savings, but I've already picked up some extra freelance work, and I should be back on track in a couple of months. It was worth every penny for the look of panic on Raul's face when he saw me at his parents' house. My house. I changed the locks. Raul never had a key, but I thought it was better to be cautious. I also installed a small security camera at the door. So far, no sign that he's tried to show up. Dating? LOL, no. My heart needs considerable time to heal. Last night, I sat on the porch with my new journal and wrote about everything that happened. I thought about how sometimes we only see what we want to see in people, how the image we have of someone can stay with us, even after the reality has already changed. Relationships can be like that too. I think sometimes we hold on to the idea of something that's already over. We just don't realize it yet. I'm in no rush for anything right now. For now, I just want to focus on myself, enjoy what I have, feel stronger and more aware, knowing that, even when everything seems to fall apart, there's always a way forward. Last update. For real. A lot of people asked if I've heard from Raul. The answer? Nothing relevant. Just some random, "I'm thinking about you" messages I ignored. The distance between us is finally peaceful, and I intend to keep it that way.